Hi, my name's Emily Rose Adams. Welcome to Presently Presents.
If you're brand new to the industry, live streaming is a great way to get into it, trial, getting to know the customer, and getting to know a brand and a particular product. But it does help to be an expert, but you can develop that over time. But as long as you prepare and you have fun and you're yourself, you'll enjoy it. That's what I believe.
Today's Presently Presents guest is an American presenter, live streamer, and voiceover artist in the UK who's worked in broadcasting for more than 10 years and has over 6,000 hours of presenting experience under her belt. She's hosted shows on QVC, the Reach TV network, and has recently worked on some really exciting projects live streaming for TikTok and on the OO app with a focus on fashion and beauty. Today's Presently Presents guest has big hair and an even bigger personality. It's Alexandria Hayden. Hey!
Emily, take a bow, girl. That was a great. You do your research. I know why you are smashing it.
I'm practicing my MC skills today.
Very good. I'm impressed. I'm gonna book you.
Thank you. I've done some stalking, clearly.
Yes. Well, I mean, there's nothing I can add to that, really and truly. That's everything that I've done.
I love your big hair and big personality.
Yeah, I think I've got that going on. It does change all the time, which, one of the big things about being a presenter, I learned this a couple of years ago during lockdown. I won like a little, it was a one-on-one with a mainstream producer, and they encouraged us to really think about branding. And that was one of the things that I thought about, which image does come into that a lot as well. What makes you unique? When you think of Holly Willoughby, what do you think of? When you think of Alan Carr, what do you think of? And so I really loved how you kind of spun all that together, because that's me. Big hair, big personality, bubbly, warm. Yes.
Delighted to have you on Presently Presents podcast today. Thank you so much for coming on. And it sounds like you've been up to some really exciting projects recently. So start by telling us a little bit about what you've been doing sort of more recently.
Well, for me, my career has really grown recently because I moved to London. So for most of the time that I've worked in the industry, I was based in the Midlands. That was where I was raised. You can hear that I'm American, but I kind of feel British at heart. So I moved here in the year 2000. So there's a lot of local shopping channels in the Midlands. Now they've kind of reduced, but back in the day, there was several to choose from. And recently I got the opportunity to move to London, and I took that opportunity, and I've had some tremendous opportunities come my way with corporate presenting, live streaming, and of course, QVC is very close to me, and I love working there. So yeah, it's been a brilliant 2022, and I have a lot of hope that 2023 is just going to be even bigger and better.
Absolutely. It sounds like it's all going really well. And I mean, it's not to say there aren't good opportunities in the Midlands, because there's lots of stuff going on. And, as we know,
Sure.
media cities moved up there, and we've got the BBC. But it sounds like for you, London is the place to be. How are you finding QVC?
I think it's a fantastic place to work. I always wanted to work there. If you're from a background like I am, where when I left university, I always knew that I wanted to be a presenter, but I did not know how to get into the industry at all. And I think a lot of people will go down the avenue of doing broadcast journalism, which is fantastic, but I'd already left. And part of me was thinking, I don't want to go back to university and take another qualification. And so my mom, she presented me with a newspaper clipping of a local shopping channel, and the rest is history. So I was mainly based in the Midlands and utilized. The great thing about working in that industry, by the way, is it's wonderful when you just leave uni, but on top of that, I was payee. So I had consistent income coming in where I could invest in myself and develop a little bit more. And I never really thought about London or anywhere else until recently. So you were just talking about how all of these places have kind of moved up more north a little bit. OO, which I loved working for, that was my first live stream opportunity, was in Manchester. So being based in the Midlands was a perfect opportunity for me to go, to Manchester, if I wanted to go even further north, it would be great. Where me living in London now, I got to get a lot of work from London because it's further to travel. So yeah, but there's been so
Amazing.
many things that have been cropping up here, and I still get most of my work from QVC. So I'm really thankful for them, and I love presenting fashion for them. And I feel like the customer really relates with me, and I've had just a really awesome experience there. They're just as kind, the presenters on TV, as they are off air, and it's just a really wonderful professional place to work.
That sounds ideal. I mean, especially if you want to do fashion and beauty in that kind of industry. So working for somewhere
Yes.
like QVC, obviously it's the biggest shopping network in the UK. And I guess back to your point about you left uni and you didn't want to go back to school, which is a route that a lot of people find
Hmm.
themselves in, because a lot of people don't
Yeah.
really, it's hard to know how to get into presenting, and doing broadcast journalism isn't always the obvious choice when you're quite young and you're deciding what you want to do.
Yes.
And I think, especially like what you're doing, it's so much about personality and confidence more than it is about being a journalist, really. How do you feel on
Yeah.
camera? Has it been a work in progress to get to this kind of, because you seem like you're a natural. I've seen lots of your reels and content online. So it seems like you're really
Thank you.
bubbly and confident. Have you always been in that place, or has it been a work in progress?
When I was at university, Emily, people, they kept saying to me, "Oh, you should go into television." And when I was a little girl, my parents used to take a lot of pictures of me, and I would always look directly into the lens of the camera. So, and I did performance studies as well at sixth form, throughout my GCSEs. I was a dancer. So I did feel like this was the right role for me. But as you mentioned there, it's kind of like, how do you get into it? And nobody mentioned shopping TV when you're at university. I did some work experience where I worked on Britain's Got Talent, and I was a runner. But how do you use that experience to then get in front of the camera? It's very difficult to even navigate that kind of world. And one of the things I really appreciate is going into shopping TV, not listening to what other people would say around me. QVC is a kind of different beast, but the smaller shopping channels, some people kind of say, well, that's not real presenting. But for me, it absolutely is. I racked up all those live hours of presenting experience because someone was brave enough to give me an opportunity to see my personality, to see that I love to research. I'm going to learn about a particular product. And you have to be entertaining, you have to be bubbly, you have to be warm, you have to be genuine and have integrity if you're going to be successful in that industry. And that's basically where I developed most of my skills, as well as producing and management skills. So I'm so thankful for choosing that route as opposed to journalism, because it's paying off now. I have all this experience where I can just talk off the top of my head about a particular topic, and I feel like I'm being myself, not necessarily presenting. So yeah, I'm really thankful for that.
Amazing. And talking for that long about products, it's not easy. And it's actually, I think
No.
for a lot of people, you can feel extremely exposed. So some of the live streaming stuff that you've done, so you've worked with TikTok and and obviously on QVC as well.
Yes.
Well, but more in particular, the live streaming roles. I've seen a lot advertised. We've had many jobs like this posted. Frequently, we get TikTok roles in particular. More and more fashion brands,
Hmm.
beauty brands, they want people to represent their brand on TikTok and do these live streams because they do so well. People love to obviously see a real
Yes.
person, someone they can relate to, giving them honest feedback about a product. How do you feel? Because some of these roles that I've seen, you could live stream for 2 hours at a time. How do you keep up your energy, your confidence? How does it feel being kind of
Hmm.
live for that long at a time?
Well, the first shopping channel I worked on, we had to broadcast for 4 hours straight. That was your slot. That was it. If you can't
Wow.
do that, there's no point in applying. And we were only selling jewelry. So this company is called Gymporia. That's where I got my start. Again, that prepared me for TikTok, for live streaming, because for me, what I think you really need to do is you need to know your product, and you have to be passionate about what you're selling. You have to be, because you have to be able to talk about it. You've got to be thinking, okay, what's the viewer thinking about this product? What would make them want to buy it? And then on top of that, you have to be entertaining as well. So we're seeing shopping TV, elements of that evolve into live streaming, where, as you mentioned, some of it isn't even about selling. When I worked at we used to have brands like Ann Summers. And yes, I have done an Ann Summers show where I presented in my bra.
Amazing.
And I loved it. It was great. It was one of the best. That's not my reel, though.
No, shame though. You should put it in. It's very empowering.
I might put it in the future. But that show was not about really, of course, there's an element of selling. It's like a live advertisement where you're answering questions for the women at home who will say, okay, well, I've got a very large bust. How does that feel on you? They can get really interactive, but you've got to know the product. You've got to wear it. You've got to believe in the brand. So it's the research that comes from that. And then adding your own flair into it and just genuinely being passionate about what you do.
So working in this field, you mentioned you worked in jewelry, you worked in fashion. Do you have to be an expert in this field, would you say? So if you're seeing a role that's for TikTok live streaming for maybe a small to medium sized brand, but maybe you're not quite an expert yet, would it still be worth applying, or do you think you really need to know that kind of sector?
I think if you're brand new to live streaming, and I've even recommended this to a couple of friends personally, give it a go. The main thing is your personality, and are you willing to research and connect with the particular brand? So don't be deterred. A lot of people will think, oh, well, look at somebody like me. I have over a decade of experience. How am I going to get an opportunity next to that person? I would say you don't necessarily have to have loads of experience. You just need to be passionate about learning about the product and the brand and caring about integrity and a connection with the customer. And it has to be entertaining. There's one particular presenter that I used to work with, and I'm going to say her name. She's lovely, Lynn Jinks. And she told me people wouldn't buy jewelry from us if we were just going to do what you're going to do in the shops. People watch for the entertainment factor, even during lockdown. And this is the same with live streaming. I used to have people come up to me and say, you're keeping me going. They weren't necessarily buying anything from me. They just liked watching the broadcast, and that was their way of connecting with someone when they couldn't get out because of, socially distancing or lockdown, etc. So if you're brand new to the industry, live streaming is a great way to get into it, trial, getting to know the customer, and getting to know a brand and a particular product. But it does help to be an expert, but you can develop that over time.
Hey folks, Emily here, and I'm interrupting this fascinating conversation, which I know can be irritating, but I wanted to ask you to do me a small favor that will help in a huge way. If you like this podcast, please subscribe now, wherever you're listening, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google, or YouTube. Then leave a rating and a review. Every subscriber and every rating helps me to keep this podcast going. Thank you. And now back to our conversation. Now at the stage you're at, would you say, like with the products that you promote and present now, how long do you have to spend sort of learning about that product? Because you've got a lot to remember. You've got, prices, how much you've got in stock, the story of that product. How long does that process take you now?
When I first started at QVC, I did spend a lot of time prepping. I still prep before every single show, but now I have particular brands that I work with. So one of the wonderful things about QVC is the authenticity. I will speak to a particular brand before I go on air. So then I can deliver that message to the viewers who already love that brand and that brand story. So that becomes easier with time. It doesn't, when I was working for and TikTok in particular, it didn't take loads of time to prep because they kind of want you to, for one brand, I saw it first, pick things off the rail and just talk about what you see and answer questions from the viewer at home. And that was really fun because that's a different viewer as well. That's a younger Gen Z individual who's like, I want that dress to go out during my freshers week. And they want to see how it feels and how it fits, but they may not be thinking about wearing that for in long term. So you have to know your customer, but it doesn't take as much time as you get loads more experience coming through.
That's really good to hear. And it also sounds really fun. It's like almost like shopping with your best friend or something. Like you're
Yes.
there giving live interactions. What a fun job that you've got. So Yeah, this is a really
That's why I love it.
yeah, I bet you do, and it sort of suits your personality. And if you're interested in that field as well, that's an amazing sort of job that you've got, and you get to enjoy it every day. It's live streaming now is more and more and more of a thing every year. So I guess you were kind of ahead of the
Hmm.
game in terms of you already
Yeah.
worked for shopping channels. You then worked for Ooh, which was I kind of it was a when did they launch? Not that long ago, like a couple of years ago, maybe.
No. Um, it might be coming up to its third year now.
Hmm.
So, used to have like a really great partnership with TikTok. So I was one of the first presenters on that platform. I was presenting on TikTok Shop before they really even knew the messaging about how to encourage the viewer to purchase. And they had a lot of promotional offers then. So it was really evolving at that particular time. So was the first UK dedicated shopping live streaming app. So that was a perfect partnership with TikTok Shop, which is launching in different countries all over the world right now.
Yeah, and I've seen them grow a lot. It seems like they've got like some massive brands. You mentioned I saw it here first.
Mm,
They've got like was it Look Fantastic, big kind of brands that we would all
yes,
recognize using it, which
yes,
is really amazing
yes.
to see the way that things are going on social media. Would you say that being a live streamer is an essential tool in terms of your portfolio and what you do as a presenter? Because it's a good way of making money. It can be regular work, if you work for different brands,
Yes.
but there's a lot of presenters that I know who haven't looked into doing live streaming yet. So is that something you think is worth doing?
Oh, totally, Emily. Absolutely. Look at the Far East, where now you have massive celebrities like Kim Kardashian, for instance, who, when they launch a particular product, they will use live streamers as that kind of way of connecting with a particular audience. So, live streaming in different places in the world, it's incredibly progressive, but already established. And these things are moving to the West, so if you can get involved on these things earlier on, it's kind of like when TikTok launched. And I was thinking, oh, I need to set up a TikTok. I actually don't have one that I actively post on, which is naughty. I should post a little bit more. But if you jump on these platforms early on, you can grow a following quite quickly. So I feel like if you're a new presenter, or even if you're an established one and you haven't looked at live streaming yet, why not? It is the future.
Definitely, definitely. And I guess by you mentioned that you don't have a TikTok account, it doesn't mean you always need your own following. Some jobs
No.
that are posted, the employers will state, look, we want you to have experience on TikTok, have your own following. But it's not always the case. You can kind of get employed as a freelancer for different brands where they want you to jump in on
Yes.
their TikTok as long as you're good on camera. So I think some people get afraid that they need some kind of big following online to become a streamer, but that's not always the case. I wanted to ask you because with QVC, there's a lot going on in that studio, isn't there? It's busy. You're doing a show for a long
Yes.
time. So you've obviously got an earpiece in. I
Hmm.
I use one. I'm a news broadcaster, so I use one every day. But it's more like counting down, video clips,
Yeah.
counting until we're off air, and a little bit of instruction, cue, but it's not. It's quite sort of basic. I once years ago did a screen test for a shopping channel. It wasn't QVC. And I remember putting in that earpiece and thinking it was absolute chaos. And they were talking to me so much,
Yeah.
giving me instructions about how many items were left in stock and how many more I needed to try
Mm,
and kind of push and things like that. And I found the experience really overwhelming. Do you have any advice for people who might go to a screen test like that for the first time and feel the same way?
yeah. Every shopping channel is different. So at QVC, I'm a fashion expert. I have an earpiece, but I don't get loads of instruction. And I don't need that because I'm there to talk about the brands that I represent and fashion and connect with the viewer. So the presenter is the person who is established on the channel, and that they're there as, it's kind of like a dance. We work with each other. So they'll get different elements of instruction from the gallery. Now, other shopping channels, Emily, that I've worked for, you will have seven people in your ear, telling you which camera to look at, and like you said, how many items are left in stock, and giving you prompts to ask the guests that you're working with, or asking you questions that the viewer might have messaged into the gallery. What I would say is that gets easier over time. Most places won't submerge you into the deep end. They were obviously giving you a very challenging audition. They wanted to see how you were going to handle talkback. But most places, they're going to have one or two voices in your ear, and that becomes very easy to work with as time progresses on. And then you've nailed talkback, live talkback, which is so, so crucial in any type of presenting, especially mainstream.
Definitely. I think it's one of those things, once you learn how to multitask like that, it's a
Yes.
skill that you really kind of use every day. And yeah, I mean, as I said, I do use it, and I find that it's got a lot easier over time. But at the start, I used to have the volume on quite low to not get too
Mm,
distracted. But then you need to hear them, especially in news at really important times or big story breaks. you
timings.
you need to be able to hear everything they're saying, so it's just sort of getting used to it, and the practice, I guess. The same with live broadcasting, feeling comfortable with
Yeah.
it. It's, I think, you've got a lot of experience, so for you it's probably just another day in the office. But I imagine there's a lot of people out there who doing their very first live stream, finding themselves on
Hmm.
camera and knowing I am here for the next, well, you had 4 hours. I've seen roles for 2 to 3 hours. I
Yes.
haven't seen any for 4 hours. But
Hmm.
how can you kind of get yourself into that situation and feel comfortable? Is there anything you would advise, like methods to relax and stay focused?
Prep your product. This, when I was working for Jimporia, they do 4 hour slots, and it will be structured with your producer. So you're sitting down and you're prepping with them. And they know their customer very well over the, I think, in excess of 17 years that they've been on air. Some of these live streaming companies that now ask for 2 or 3 hours, you take that same ethos and you prep your product. It will help you relax because you know what you're talking about. And it's just you and the camera. The good thing about live streaming, if you are new to presenting, is you don't normally have a talk back. So there's nobody in your ear. Even more important, though, that you know what you're talking about, because there's not going to be a producer there to ask you particular questions or give you an idea of timing. So I really prep and I have fun. I have fun. Everybody has their own particular fortes and strengths. And I found this. So, whereas I'm really good at live presenting, recently I started to do scripted stuff with Reach TV. And that's where my challenges come in because it's scripted. I've never done work like that, reading an auto cue, bringing that to life, adding my own personality and flair. So, it's almost like if you imagine you're on a video game,
Hmm.
and Emily, you'll have certain strengths and certain weaknesses. And if you pick me as a character, I'll have certain strengths and certain weaknesses. You can develop on those things as you start to flourish in the industry. But as long as you prepare and you have fun and you're yourself, you'll enjoy it. That's what I believe.
Definitely. It's a great combination, being organized and prepared, but also having a great bubbly personality, and you're good. You're
Yeah.
good to go. Same in news, being prepared is key, because if that auto cue goes down or your guest cuts out or they don't show up, whatever, you've got to know the story. And I find when you know the story, there's nothing to worry about because you actually know what you're talking about, which always helps, doesn't it? you
Exactly.
you
Absolutely.
you mentioned Reach just then, and I've seen clips of you doing their Good News show, which I loved. I think, having worked in news for too long, I think I've gotten a bit of an obsession with good news because I'm very used to having to deal with bad news that we've had over the last four
Yes.
years in particular. It's been really sort of chaotic. So I love the idea of kind of good news networks. How did you get that role? Because obviously you've found your niche in shopping and beauty and live streaming. This is something completely different. Reach TV Network, they're broadcasts internationally, aren't they? Especially in the United States.
They are. Yes. So they are the biggest airport television network in the United States. And it's really wonderful how they found me. It's the same way you found me. So through social media and my reels. I don't have representation. I've never really had, I'm listed on certain agents' websites, but there's a lot of different ways that you can define what an agent will do for you. Some people, most of your mainstream presenters will have a dedicated agent that represents them, that finds jobs and things for them.
Hmm.
I have had a really wonderful career through, people like you and my reel, and people finding me recently now that I'm based in London. So Reach TV found me. They saw my reel online. They looked at me on Instagram. They looked at me on other agency websites. So I definitely would say if you're new to presenting, try to find some agencies that you can sign up for because they read about me in my bio and watched my reel on these. So they're finding out more about me,
Mm.
finding out more about my experience. And basically they invited me in for an audition. So it's gone from strength to strength.
Dreamy situation. I mean,
Yeah.
what can I say? So many people have to apply for roles, and you can apply for so many before you actually get your job, or first big job that you want. But this is brilliant, and I guess it's also another example of why it's so important to have a fantastic show reel. And
Yes.
I watched your show reel. I don't know how I stumbled across it, but I did, and I just thought I need to speak to that person. She's brilliant. So I
Thank
think,
you.
yeah, having a great reel, it's your CV. It's so
It
important,
is.
and you've put yours on Instagram, and just putting it in obvious places. I guess that's really good for people, because hearing these amazing stories, and seeing the roles that you've done there with Reach, it looks like a really fun job. So it's amazing that that's led to that. So yeah, well done with that. It's really exciting. And would you like to
Thank
do
you.
more of that kind of content in the future? So as well as your shopping TV, also doing kind of scripted other TV stuff?
Yeah, I would love to develop and grow even further. Now that I've started to do scripted presenting. I also did some corporate presenting. I haven't mentioned this yet because sometimes when you do corporate presenting, as you know, the client, it's going to be in-house. So you're not necessarily going to be able to advertise that you've worked with these people. But I worked with one of the biggest brands on the planet. And again, they found me through my reel, and that was scripted corporate presenting. So I would love to do more of that. I would love to do more scripted fashion, beauty, things of that nature on different avenues. I love working in home shopping, and I hope that I have a career in that for the foreseeable future. But I would love to branch off into other things. I'm not live streaming at the moment, but I would love to get back into that as well. And I also am quite passionate about documentaries too. So wherever my career goes, what suits me as a person and my brand, if you like my voice, if you like my aesthetic and who I am as a person, I'm really willing to give it a shot at this stage in my career.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I guess the way you constructed your reel, I noticed that it had a mix of stuff. So it had your live streaming,
Yes.
it had you interviewing people, it had pieces to camera. So they're really cool because it just shows that you're diverse and you've got multiple skills, and you're not kind of putting yourself just into one category, which I guess can limit you a little bit with future opportunities. How have you found it, by the way, having an American accent, living in the UK? Because we've got lots of people on Presently who are international and they speak several languages, and they a few times have said they find that there are fewer opportunities. How have you found that?
Emily, you know the industry like the back of your hand. The same people who I won that particular prize from, where they were giving me one-on-one branding advice, a few years prior to that, it told me, well, there is a celebration of Britishness in the UK, and you're probably going to struggle with your accent, which really, oh my goodness, it was like an arrow through the heart because
Mm.
I really desperately wanted more work. I wanted to see what other things I could do outside the industry that home shopping. But now, and I have to say this, a couple of things that happened over the pandemic, diversity has been celebrated in many different forms,
Hmm.
so much more. It's not something that I find is a hindrance for me.
Hmm.
So this corporate presenting job that I presented for it's an international company, but they wanted an American accent and they wanted a black woman. So me being in the UK with presenting experience, the pool narrows
Yes.
significantly in my favor.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I guess there are, as you said, there are many jobs that come through now, like for, and as it should be, that diversity has been championed and in all different ways,
Yes.
as you said. So I'm really happy to hear that. And I hope it continues even further down that route.
I think it will. And like I said, diversity in many different forms. It can be somebody who has different experiences with their maybe they have a special ability, or they've had a disability that they have a story about, or they're from a different ethnic background, or they're queer. There's lots of different faces that can be put forward for a particular project that weren't necessarily being championed before. And I'm not saying I was chosen for this job because I'm one of the only people if they're looking for a particular person who looks a particular way. I also think that I have the experience as well. I've been put forward for jobs with Google, and there's been certain the client is looking for a certain person. They might change their opinion and go for a British accent.
Hmm.
What I would say is, and this is something I wanted to say to anybody who's listening to this podcast, is one of the things that held me back in the past was I didn't put myself forward for jobs because I was scared of rejection. And now I've gotten to the point where I will apply for things and forget about them. And if I hear something back, right, and you want to get to that point in your career, because once you do that, opportunities will start opening up for you for sure.
Definitely. I think that's a really good attitude to have. It's one of those things where you can be hopeful that you'll get the role, but it's best to kind of put it aside and not think about it. And it is a numbers game at the end of
Absolutely.
the day. The people that I see that are nailing it and getting a lot of the roles are the ones who are, logging into sites like Presently. And
Yes.
they're the first few to apply, and they're really dedicated and kind of putting themselves out there. And eventually, if you've got the personality, you've got a good reel, you've got some experience, the more you apply, it really is a numbers game. Eventually, the odds will work in your favor and you'll end up with some great roles.
You definitely will. And that's one thing that helped me at the start of my career. I did shopping TV, but there was a point where I thought, no, I want to see what else I can do. So I got a tour guide job at the BBC. I found that through a site like Presenterly. So if you're new, give it a try. It's not expensive. You should think of it as investing in yourself. That's the way that I see it. So I need new headshots. And I can sit here and I can say, well, I don't want to spend the money on those things. But an agent is only going to ask me for, a client is only going to ask me for a headshot. So I should just invest in myself, just like I've done with my career. And, Presently, these sites are fantastic for helping you gain access to jobs that you're not going to find, or you're never going to find online easily yourself. So you never know what will happen.
Couldn't agree more. And I think a lot of people forget sometimes things like headshots, reels, you know, websites that you need to use. This stuff is tax deductible if you're self-employed. So, you
Yes.
can kind of work that out so it doesn't end up too expensive. So it sounds like you've been on a pretty focused path in terms of your career and reaching out for opportunities, also getting some nice opportunities coming your way, which is always very helpful.
Yeah.
In the next sort of 5 years, what's your main goal, would you say, with your career?
I would love to do some mainstream presenting
Hmm.
in fashion, beauty, or documentary wise, something that is connected to my story or me as an individual. I would also love to flourish more in live streaming and have something more permanent in home shopping as well. I love the industry I work in, and I never see myself really leaving that. And I would love to move more so into commercials and voiceover
Hmm.
content as well. I think not having a really kind of pigeonholed view, which is what I used to have. I only used to say, oh, I only ever want to work in shopping
Hmm.
TV, and I think that's quite rare. But that's how I was. I love what I do, so I was like, this is for me forever. I think having more of an idea of who I am as a person and focusing that on different projects. I just want to grow basically in 5 years' time. I wouldn't even be adverse, Emily, to trying some reality TV that suits me as well and doesn't jeopardize the work that I've already got coming in.
Yeah.
So I just want to grow. I would love it if you turn on the TV on another channel other than QVC and you could recognize me from there. That's where I would like to be.
That's an amazing goal to have. It's very tricky, isn't it, with reality TV to know the boundaries because it can work so well in your favor, as we've seen in terms of Love Island and the opportunities that those people have got, the
Yes.
overnight 1 million followers that you achieve and the brand deals. You know, it all looks very, very tempting. But at the same time, I think some people see it as like, oh, that's not something I would want to kind of expose myself into. And, you know,
Hmm.
they want to stay down the sort of traditional presenting path. But it sounds like, you know, you're keeping your options open and, you know, if something like that worked out, the doors that could open, you know, it's just incredible. Some of these huge TV shows that, you know, reality TV contestants end up doing is like an opportunity that a lot of presenters would die for.
Of course, Emily, years ago, when remember I told you I didn't know how to get into presenting on television, full stop. So I was given a ticket for this networking event, and
Mm-hmm.
it was in Birmingham. Ed James from Breakfast, I think he was on Heart FM at the time, and another reality star, and Allison Hammond, who you
Oh,
know
yeah.
is from Birmingham. And what's her story? She started off on Big Brother. And I remember I got the opportunity to meet her for like 30 seconds at the end. And she said, "You've got an amazing personality and a wonderful look. You need to go to London." That's where I am right now. But she was talking about her story and obviously how reality TV was an amazing platform for her, even though she didn't go on to win the show. So you kind of have to, it has to be a show that's right for you. I was shortlisted for a show on Netflix during the pandemic, and that's what opened my eyes up to, oh, this could be something that I into in the future, but you have to be mindful of the work that you're already doing and the work that you'd like to get in the future. So a show like Love Island, first, I'm too old, but it wouldn't be for me.
You're definitely not too old. The nation would love
Well, I
you.
don't know how many people in their mid 30s. Yes, but you gotta choose the right show.
They should start a new Love Island, which is, you know, for 30 plus people.
Yes. Well, maybe that might happen, but you know, for me, I think if you go on a show like the show that I was on, and you know yourself and you're aware of the camera, I can't see how that's going to not work out positively for you.
Yeah.
But we have examples where it hasn't.
Mm.
So I'm just open to the idea. I'm not saying it's something I definitely want to do, but I'm just open to it.
Yeah, for the doors that it could open. And, you know, you've got a great
Yeah.
personality. So I think for someone like you, it would work really well. So I guess we'll see what
Thank you.
happens with that. Also,
Yes.
Alison Hammond, I used to work with her. Well, I did a show with her. I used to do musical theatre before I became a presenter. And we did a panto together where I was Jasmine and she was the genie. And she was just I worked with her for about 2 months maybe. And she was just such a ray of sunshine. Like the person that you see on TV is exactly this. She's no different with the cameras, which I guess for that kind of role is exactly what you want.
Yes. And also, honestly, a lot of home shopping TV is you're being yourself. Obviously, a more polished version of yourself that's
Hmm.
talking about a particular item, but it shouldn't be an act. I don't
Yeah.
act. I'm not an actress. I'm just myself.
I tried to be an actress for a while and I realized I don't like acting. I like being real. So that's why presenting works for me as well.
Same, same.
Well, Alexandria, it's been such a pleasure talking to you today. Like, I feel like we've had a really nice chat about live streaming and just the industry in general. And I'm really excited to kind of keep watching you. Now we've made this connection. Where can everyone follow you, by the way?
So my Instagram is Alex_Hayden TV, so you can follow me there. And like Emily has already said, you got a reel and things like that. Do what I did and put those things in your bio on Instagram. I don't update it as much as I should. I'm going to work on that, but that's how you can find me and see my, what I do and you can keep up with me basically there.
Amazing advice. Just something as simple as that can land you a
Yeah.
brilliant job. So thank you. Sometimes
Yes.
the obvious things don't come to mind. So it's great to hear that. But thank you so much, Alexandra. You've been such a pleasure to talk to, and it's really nice hearing success stories like yours. You know, a career spanning 10 years and just watching it grow and develop more and more. So love chatting to you. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Emily. Thank you so much for inviting me onto the podcast. It's the pleasure has really been all mine, and I hope we get to keep in touch,
I would
in
love
the
that.
future.
Definitely. Thanks so
Thank you.
much.